Hey, this is Mark Henry here to talk to you more about the occult and paranormal. Well, today I'm going to be talking a little bit about a question. What is the Slender Man? Now, to answer that question, what is the Slender Man, you have to ask the question, who is the Slender Man? Because I see the Slender Man as something that, it's an example of something which is, I guess, the point of this video, which I'll talk about at the end. But for those people who have not been keeping in touch with pop culture, I guess, since the last 10 years, let me tell you about who the Slender Man is. So at one time, he was nothing, not even a thought. And just like ideas that become popular, that become mimetic, that spread along the internet, in 2009, Eric Knudsen entered a contest, Photoshop contest, and he submitted two photographs to the Something Awful internet forum. And what he presented was what we now as a captioned photograph, which is now known as the Slender Man. The Slender Man, as a creature, as a monster, is somebody who is faceless, doesn't have any distinct features of his head. He is tall, he has white skin, long arms, tall in appearance, very thin. So we can kind of see him, I guess, being created as almost like a horror monster. Now his popularity after that grew. In fact, as of now, there's at least 2 video games that's come from the idea of the Slender Man. And there's also a movie, feature film, that came out, I want to say, last year. There's also an HBO documentary, which you could also find on YouTube. If you look, it won't take much time. In fact, maybe I'll, if I think about it, I'll put a link at the bottom of the description. So the Slender Man is basically internet folklore, an internet myth that came about, just like many. But this didn't even seem intentional. This didn't seem like it was meant to go and become popular or viral. But just like many things that occur in pop culture, it has a life of its own. It has a power of its own. In, I believe it was 2014, 2 12-year-old girls who were reading stories about the Slender Man on Creepypasta website, who were writing, who were really engaged in it, went and stabbed a 12-year-old classmate in Washington. In fact, they stabbed this little girl 19 times. And when they were questioned about why did they do this, they said that they had to because the Slender Man told them that if they didn't, their family would be killed. I think the other girl said that they did it also become kind of in the good graces of the Slender Man. The Slender Man, as his, I guess, his characteristics go, involves following, scaring, influencing, and capturing young teens and teenagers. So these girls were involved in this type of, I guess, in this type of storytelling, in this myth of the Slender Man, got involved and felt compelled to actually potentially commit murder. And I want to say that these girls are in mental hospitals at the time. I think that the way that the court went, if I'm not mistaken, is that they got them off from doing some serious, jail time to being in psychiatric care. But this isn't the only example. From this story, there's been suicides. There's been people setting their houses on fire. other stabbings, all in the name of the Slenderman. So I guess, what do you think about all this? Um, I know, as you know, as you listen to this, you might say, well, what does this have to do with the occult and the paranormal? And when I think of the Slender Man, you know, I don't just think of some young impressionable kids who are just getting involved in some horror stuff. Maybe they had some vulnerabilities, psychological vulnerabilities, and they got wrapped up in it and did some things. I think of it as someone who's into metaphysics is slightly different. I think of egregores. I think of, there was no Slender Man, then someone came up with an image. From that, it became popular. You know, millions of kids looking at stories, creating stories, investing psychological and mental energy into it. The creation of movies, a documentary, creation of video games. This is how egregores start, and it can have an immense amount of power due to the influence. And with egregores, which are just, you know, thought forms, essentially created by, you know, the collective. Not only can people can invest energy and make it stronger, but it can have a presence of its own, a life of its own, based on the characteristics that are invested in it and that get told, and based on, you know, the things that kind of go along with it. So this is why I think that egregores can be potentially dangerous. You know, when I thought of the Slender Man, I thought of the Candy Man. I don't know why I see that connection. For those of y'all who keep up with horror movies, the Candy Man, is the original one, which I liked, came out, I want to say, in maybe 1992. But it was a movie that was also based on an urban legend. Well, the movie reflects the story within of an urban legend, the Candyman. And there's an involvement of mirrors, which, you know, if you are old enough, you remember playing the Bloody Mary game through the mirror, which played upon that. But Candyman, they had 3 movies. It was a big kind of sensation. People were talking about it. And now they're about to have another Candyman, which could recharge it. If that is an egregore, it could be recharged by this new film that's coming out. So, am I saying that the egregore forced these children to do that, or actually, you know, influence them to do it? I think that thoughts have power, and I think that, as Nietzsche said, that when you look into the abyss will look onto you. So I do think that in certain circumstances that they do have power. I don't know if I haven't really read of anybody actually trying to summon the Slender Man. But I sometimes worry about these cultural phenomena and how they can kind of impact people's minds and affect them. If you looked at some of my past videos, I have one on pop culture magic, which actually uses movies, games, graphic novels, characters with whom other people have invested on a large collective level, and using that to do magic. In a way, that is an egregore. So in any case, I want to kind of bring that to your attention. Tell me what you think, and I hope to see you in a future video. Oh yeah, and by the way, before I forget, Again, if you're interested, go and check out the links in the description below. I'm going to try to put the link to the Slenderman documentary on HBO along with some other things. So check it out. Please subscribe and like, and I'll see you later.